NRI Wellness brings you the latest health and nutrition information, creates customized nutrition programs, and walks you through the process to ensure your success.
Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for logging in for another episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness. I am your host, the owner of NRI Wellness, Cammie Red. And we have another dynamic guest on today's show. We have Sue Ritchie, the fertility coach. Now, we are so grateful for Sue being on the show. She's joining us all the way from the UK. So, Sue, first of all, thank you for being here. And I'm going to let you get started by telling us, how did you get to this point? What is your personal experience, your wellness journey?
Okay, well, lovely. Thanks very much, Cammie. Great introduction. And yeah, right. Okay, so where do I start? Okay, I suppose up until about 11 years ago, I started off with a sort of corporate marketing career, successful corporate marketing career. My life was really, the pattern was really being a workaholic, working all the hours God sends, looking after everybody else, but guess what? Not looking after me. And I then started my own business, my own direct marketing business. And, I made some decisions because I had 2 children then, I was a single parent, that, starting my own business would give me that flexibility to really, take some time out and stuff like that. And I guess what happened was that business started to take off. And, those old patterns of behavior of, I was working till 2 a.m. sometimes to get work completed for clients after the children had gone to bed. And really it all sort of, I suppose, came to a head, as I said, probably about, 11 or 12 years ago, when I started really having big issues with feeling really tired all the time. I had a terrible brain fog. My memory, which had always been amazing, was, there were days I can tell you that I literally thought, I must be going mad. I must be going insane. And, I had things like pains in my joints. I was having recurrent cystitis. I was having times when I, couldn't breathe properly, and yet there was no sort of medical thing when they checked it out as to the reasons why. And ultimately, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which, for those that don't know, is an autoimmune disease that affects the thyroid gland, making it underactive. And the interesting thing was when I was in the doctor's surgery, having had this diagnosis, I've always been interested in, alternative stuff and nutrition and things all around that to do with health. So my sort of response was to the doctor, well, okay, I can get my immune system back on track and get well again. And I was quite stunned and shocked by the response that I got, because it really was, said to me in quite an aggressive tone, really, of, that's impossible. You're going to be on the medication for the rest of your life. And at that point, when I was actually sitting there in the doctor's surgery, I remember that, loads of stuff just went through my head, and I was thinking, you know what, I'm really active. I love being active. I love traveling. I really want to be, when I have grandchildren, I want to be able to chase them around the garden or, things like that, and do stuff with them. And so it was really that situation of, what, I'm not willing to accept this prognosis. And so I really walked out of the doctor's surgery on that day, as I say, with a prescription in one hand and a decision and a determination that I would do everything I could to get myself well again. So that really, you know, sort of started my journey, if you like, to where I am today. And I had to make some really big decisions. And I'm, you know, actually incredibly grateful for the gift of having that disease, and you know, and I call it a big health wake up call, basically, because it made me really look at my life, realize that actually I hadn't really been happy, I hadn't been feeling fulfilled. You know, I'd let go of so many of things that I really enjoyed doing. So there was, like, you know, no fun really left in my life. And there'd be, you know, I used to love singing, I used to love doing, you know, creative things, sewing, and lots of different things like that. And I'd sort of over the years just let all of those things go. And everything was focused outwardly, and I really wasn't, you know, giving myself the time and attention that I should have been giving. So from that, I really made a big decision that I would, if you like, shrink my business, in the sense that I had 2 members of staff, and I actually made them redundant. And that was a very, very difficult decision, because I felt very much that, you know, oh God, if I do that, they're not going to get another job, and then I'm going to be responsible because they can't pay their mortgage. And it was quite tough to make that decision. But the amazing thing was that actually, once I'd made that decision, it really felt like, you know, dropping a great big heavy rucksack, if you like, off of my back. And so I went ahead and did that, because I really needed to take time out for myself. And I started to put in some really, really, you know, strong, and for me, I mean strong, boundaries in terms of when I would work and when I wouldn't. And I started doing, you know, lots of things like taking lots of walks out in nature and spending time out. Also doing meditation on a daily basis. And I suppose the 2 things that came from that, one was that in that year, I actually doubled my turnover and almost doubled my profit in my business, which was quite a, you know, not what I'd expected. But what I realized, you know, looking back on it, was that I was actually focused when I was working. You know, my productivity increased because I was really focused on, you know, spending the time and having to fit it into the time that I allocated for work. But, you know, also it was the realization that I had to start putting myself first. And that's something that in my whole life up until then, I'd never, ever, ever done. It was always about other people and taking care of other people. And, you know, and it's something that I realized, you know, today, that I think it's a very typical thing for women. And it's considered to be selfish to put ourselves first, but actually it's totally the opposite, because we can't help others if we're not in a good place ourselves. And I think that's particularly important if you're a mum and you've got kids and stuff as well, because, you know, you need to show up as the best version of yourself for your kids, and if not, any, you know, other people in your family. And so, but the thing was, it was also a sort of starting of a journey of self-healing, personal growth, personal development, because, and that sort of started really with, and it probably seems quite amazing actually, some people might think this is crazy, but I, you know, up until then, and it really happened that I went to a particular event and I was sitting in the front row, and somebody was on the stage telling their story, and I literally sat there and tears were like rolling down my cheeks, because I suddenly realized that, hell, somebody else actually feels the way I do about myself. I felt that I didn't feel good enough and didn't feel, you know, worthy. And, and my negative voice, if you like, my inner critic was just absolutely vicious. And it was a day when I actually, it was an interesting thing, because whilst in my business, I'd been shrinking away, and therefore from a revenue point of view, it had, started to shrink. But I knew at that point that I really needed to do this person's program. And yet there was, quite a high price tag on it, of like £2,500. And my sort of heart was saying, I really need to do this. My head was saying, you can't afford to do this. Well, how are you going to pay for it? And ultimately, actually, my heart won on that day. And I'm just so grateful that I actually, invested in myself, if you like. And that was a big thing for me. And I think it, the interesting thing was that the money actually came in for me to pay for that. I put it on my credit card, but the money actually came in for me to be able to pay that very, very quickly after I'd actually done the program. And for me, that's, it's a real, I guess to me, it's sort of like when you invest in yourself, you're showing the universe that you're actually worth something, and therefore you get, that worth coming back to you. And so that sort of started. So I underwent a lot of healing and personal growth and stuff. But one of the key things that actually happened was, as a result of doing my meditation, one day the answer, I've been doing a lot of research as well, online, to try and find out how I could actually get myself well again. But the truth is that one day after I'd meditated, this word just popped into my head, and the word was Candida. And when I actually heard that in my head, it was like, okay, great. So now let's go and have a look what's out there all about this. And eventually I really sort of found a website or whatever that was talking about the whole thing in Candida, and it had a list of the symptoms. And it was literally, I could just go through and just tick pretty much all of them off. And from that, I then found out how I could actually, through just using natural supplements and changing my diet, how I could actually get myself on the road to recovery and to get well again. And the key was actually in my gut health, and in the whole rebalancing of my gut microbiome. But it was also about changing my diet, so taking out gluten, taking out dairy from my diet, and doing those things, and eliminating sort of processed foods, really eating just a whole natural diet, and eliminating sugar as well. And within, a matter of a handful of weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, I started to feel so much better. My energy started to come back. The incredible thing was actually I had a weight issue, and in 3 months I lost 35 pounds. So that was like, wow, what a bonus. It wasn't my intention from what I was doing that would happen, but it was a really great feeling that it did. And really within sort of 3 months, I was feeling, really myself again. And over the next sort of 18 months, I was able to reduce the medication. And, since that time, I've been medication free and well again and recovered. But I think the key thing that, physical health is connected to emotions and emotional stuff. And, a lot of things that happen to us in our childhood and things that we take on from our parents, and those experiences do have an effect on our physical health, and they come out in a physical way. But also what I've realized in hindsight is that it's also about speaking your truth and having a voice. because it's to do with the throat. And that was something that I probably felt that I'd never had in my life, simply because of the way I was brought up. My parents were quite strict, and my father was very, whilst bless him, I love him to bits, but he was very hard on me in terms of always being critical of what came out of my mouth, what I said. And, definitely, that's had a big impact, on my life. Probably, up until, it still has a little issue for me as well about, being able to speak my truth and putting myself out there, if you like. So that's sort of how I got to where I am. But equally to, bring into this was that, I love children, and I always wanted to have children. That was something I wanted ever since I was a child. I knew I wanted to have a family. But at 30, I found myself single, and, really having this feeling inside of me of going, the body clock was ticking. And is it, and I was thinking, is this going to ever happen for me? And there were just days I can remember feeling really, really, just down, and felt helpless, thinking maybe this might not ever happen for me. But the great thing is, it did when I was 36. And I had my son at 36, and I had my daughter at 39. And I'm just so blessed and so grateful to have them. It's a wonderful thing.
So, Sue, you told us about who you are and how you've gotten to this point in your journey with wellness. Let's talk about how you help people. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face in your area or your expertise of wellness, and how do you overcome it? Also, what are some of the common myths that you often hear that you find yourself dispelling all the time?
Right, that's great. Where to start? Okay, I think that the thing is that a lot of people, and because the sort of medical profession focus very much on the physical side of things, and about, it's the physical, it's about the body, it's about the reproductive bits, and whether they're functioning or not. And and that's great. And but for me, fertility is a much bigger thing. We're human beings, and we have a mind, we have a body, and we also have a spirit. And each one of those elements of us has an impact on the other. So, we are connected, we are a holistic system. And, in order to really sort of optimize the body in fertility and increasing potential for conception, we do have to work on all of the areas that make us up, if you like, as a human, because nothing works independently. Our mind is incredibly powerful, and it has a huge impact on our body, and and vice versa. The body talks to the mind as well, and you can't separate those two. And I think one of the big challenges that clients find is, when you're struggling to conceive, it's so easy to really get dragged down into, really sort of feeling negative about your life, feeling bad about yourself, beating yourself up because it's not happening, beating your, really sort of beating your body up, if you like, for not being able to create this, new life that you want so desperately. And it's so easy to become sort of desperate, and also frustrated, and probably even angry at times. And so, your mindset becomes really stuck into the negative. And so often, women will be sort of saying to themselves, when it comes to that time, of the month, every month, and, it's not happening, conception isn't happening, it's incredibly easy to start saying to yourself, I'm never going to get pregnant. Or I, might be saying, women sometimes are thinking, or even subconsciously, that they might not really understand, is that they're saying, I don't deserve to be a mum. I'm not worthy of being a mum. And it's, when you're sort of caught up in this situation, it's very difficult on your own to really, get a handle on your mindset, get a handle on those thoughts so that you can actually switch them into the positive. But it is really, really important to, the mind just has this power, but also when you're constantly in the negative around things, just your energy level is just drops, significantly. Whereas when you're positive and you feel good, everything, is more energized, and your whole body works much better from that point of view. And, I suppose some other of the areas that a lot of people don't realize is, fundamental, is all about gut health. And, I mentioned earlier that, finding out about gut health actually, enabled me to really turn not only my life around, but also, my health around. And since then, I am just constantly, if you like, keeping myself up to date with all the latest research on gut health, because it really underpins, our health, our mental health, our physical health, and having a proper balanced gut microbiome really is the difference between remaining healthy or going to disease. And, the whole thing about the gut is really fundamental for fertility as well, simply because, all the hormones and things like that are there, but also in order to prepare your body to conceive, your body needs to be in a healthy state. And it's, it is critical. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is to promote to people that it's really important to prepare for conception. And, it's so interesting, isn't it, how we prepare for interviews, for going for a job, we prepare for a wedding, we prepare for, if we're public speaking, we prepare because, the reason we do it is that we really want to sort of create the biggest possibility that we can be successful and that things will go smoothly. But it's strange that very little is talked about preparing for conception. And I'd really like to, start to see that changing in life, because, the health of our body when, the point at which we conceive actually has an impact on the health of our baby. And also our gut microbiome, if you like, the state of our gut microbiome if it's not healthy, it gets passed on to the baby. So the baby, if your gut health isn't in a good place and your body isn't physically in a good place, it's very easy for health issues to get passed on, and the baby isn't born, with as good a health as it possibly could have. And, that can then go on and actually impact the baby's or the child's health, if you like. It has an impact on, adult health as well later on in life. So it's really important, and and I work with my clients to really work on, getting your health in a good place, eating a healthy diet, making sure you get all the right nutrition, get good exercise, All of these things are very important. And I suppose one of the things that I'm also feel is important is I like to work with couples preferably. That isn't always possible because sometimes the men, excuse me, the men don't always want to be involved, which is a shame because, again, the reality is in fertility, it takes two to tango. And, you know, the health of the man and, you know, his lifestyle and all of those factors have an impact on his fertility. And, you know, too much tends to be focused on the woman, and she's the one who's doing all the things to make changes, to, you know, improve things. But it is important for both parties to work on improving fertility. And, you know, the other thing as well is that working with couples is that one of the things that, you know, I see with my clients is relationships really struggle when people are desperate to have a baby. It becomes obsessive. And, you know, sometimes, you know, men just really don't get it because they don't have that same, you know, the biological clock ticking just doesn't have that, you know, as huge an impact on him as it does for so many women. And yet, you know, keeping that relationship in a good place, supporting each other, talking, communicating is hugely important. And, you know, so often when people are struggling to conceive, one of the, you know, the fatalities, if you like, in that can often be that the relationship breaks up. And to me, that's a really, really sad situation. So, you know, that's another sort of area which, you know, I feel is very important when you're going on this, you know, difficult journey, when you're struggling to conceive, or, you know, actually if you're just deciding that you want to, you know, start having a baby. It is important to, you know, prepare, you know, not only physically but also mentally and also spiritually as well. And I think one of the things that I learned as well, because lifestyles today are really busy. And I used to be, I say, well, how I call it is addicted to busyness. And that addiction to busyness is a sort of malaise, I think, of our times. And it's for women, I don't know why, but we've sort of come to sort of see that we want to, you know, we have to do everything. And, you know, it really doesn't help us because stress is a huge factor which actually inhibits conception. And stress actually has a huge impact on the health of our gut as well. And so it becomes sort of almost like a vicious circle. And for me, what I realized when I was talking about sort of being, you know, the spiritual aspect was that when I was living my life, you know, on this hamster wheel, if you like, busy, looking after everybody else, not taking care of myself, was that I really lost connection to who I was as a person. So I lost connection to the real me. And, you know, I think that's a real issue for so many of us today, is that, and by doing that, we sort of lose touch with what's really important in life. What are the real important values? And, you know, it does take, you know, some time to actually think about, you know, do I need to be working at 1,000,000 miles an hour? You know, do I need to be doing a job that's really, really stressful and is actually, you know, at the end of the day, why am I doing it? Why am I putting myself through this? When perhaps I could be, you know, a little kinder to myself and really allow myself to just, you know, let go and focus. And actually let go is a huge a huge thing. And I've, for me, the whole concept of letting go has been one of the things on my journey that's been a big thing that I've had to learn. And it's something that it's not easy by any means. But we have to learn to actually understand, what's important to us and what's not important. And you know what I mean? That's a matter of life and death, if you like.
So tell me about a time that a client touched your heart and it actually changed the way you practice your business.
That's interesting. I guess it didn't really start like that, because it was really, I sort of created my program and what I do, because it's not only come from working with clients, but it's also come from my own life experience and how what I have learned, if you like, on my own personal journey of what's important, and having to deal with, having a really negative mindset, and how I used to really self-sabotage myself so badly. So, so many of the things that my clients are going through, I have been through myself. I understand them. I know how it feels. I know that, overcoming some of these things isn't always easy when you try to do it on your own. And that's the tough part, but it also is actually important to get support on this journey, because that can make it so much easier for you.
This is a 2-second nutrition tip. Set aside time each weekend for food shopping and to prep some nutritious food items. You can pre-chop vegetables for salads and side dishes, pack up healthy lunches, slice up fruit for snacks. Planning ahead will help you avoid making convenient but less healthy choices during the week when time is short. Let me know how it goes. This has been a 2-second nutrition tip.
So Sue, tell us why you do what you do. Tell us about the services that you provide as a fertility coach.
Yeah, no, that's great. Why I do what I do, it really comes from a couple of things. One is, and I think I probably mentioned this previously, is that I really love children. I think they're absolutely amazing things. But one of the things that, it comes from my own experience of my own childhood, where, my parents did the best job that they could with what they knew, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But some of the things that I was on the receiving end of, which was particularly around being criticized for things that I said or spoke out, and things weren't good enough, and I needed to have done it better, has had a sort of, both a positive and a negative impact on my life. And certainly with the criticism of, what came out of my mouth, I have struggled a lot with really, speaking and sharing my knowledge and experience, out in the world in a bigger way. It has held me back over the years. So, one of the sort of, I suppose the key thing with my mission as to why I do what I do is that the health of our children today is really poor. And I hate to see, children, really suffering. We've got children of, well, in the UK, certainly, and I'm sure that the stats are pretty much the same in a lot of countries, is that, one in 5 primary school children are either overweight or obese. And, that leads on to, children at 10 having, type 2 diabetes, and all the damage that actually happens, to their body and their organs by having that. So those are 2 things. And one of the key things that you know, I really like to encourage people is to really, you know, start thinking about conscious parenting. That's how I put it. And what I mean by that is really, you know, when I work with my clients, I like to look at, and we like to explore and really do some healing work around things that have happened in, you know, my clients' childhood traumas, things that, you know, have affected them. Because the sad thing is, and you know, I'm I'm as guilty as the next person, and I do have regrets that whilst when I had my children, I, you know, made a particular intention and not to actually, you know, criticize my children and to really be supportive and praise them. But you know, equally, I know there are other things, particularly around my own personal self-worth and self-value, that unfortunately, you know, I didn't realize at the time, but I have passed some of that on to, you know, my children. And so, you know, for me, it's, you know, we're not, as, you know, as human beings, we're never going to be perfect. And there will be times when, you know, things will come out of our mouths or whatever that isn't the right thing. But I think if you're, you know, you have the awareness, so you're having the consciousness and the awareness of, you know, not wanting to do those things, means that you can backtrack. If you say something to your child that you didn't really want to say, you can backtrack, and you can also explain why it happened. So it actually gives the child that much bigger picture of, you know, how you deal with different things, and you say things that you don't want to say and you don't mean. And you know, and to apologize, which is, you know, a really good thing to do, because I think, you know, also to show children that we're not perfect. We do make mistakes, and you know what? It's really okay to make mistakes and learn from them. So those are the sort of the, you know, the two key things that, you know, really sort of fundamentally is my mission, if you like. And, you know, and I have my 6-month OptiMum Fertility formula, which is my program, where I work with not only women, but ideally I like to work with both partners, both people, so that they we work with them both to, you know, optimize all of the areas that underpin fertility, so that they increase their potential for conception, and, you know, going on and actually creating what I like to call is a bundle of joy, because I think that's what they are. So the experience, what do you get with my program? Well, I suppose the journey starts with having a one of my complimentary fertility focus calls. And on that call, it really is, you know, an opportunity not for me to really understand where you are, what's going on for you, and to see how I could potentially help you. And it's also a two-way street, because it's also, you know, if we're going to work together, you need to feel comfortable working with me, just as I need to feel comfortable working with you. Because, you know, for me, when I work with my clients, I want it to be a win-win situation. And, you know, and that is important. So we both have to feel that we're a good fit for each other. So once we've had that call, and if you say, yes, you want to actually start working with me, what happens next? Well, the ideal scenario normally, what I would do, and things have changed with this whole new situation, because I actually like to go and meet people physically in the flesh. I think that's so much nicer. But of course, you know, we have to sort of pivot around that in the current scenario. So, you know, we basically have, and it's now split, if you like, into sort of two 2-hour sessions where, you know, we sort of get together, and, you know, I will talk to, we're working with couples, then I will talk to both parties, get to understand them, get to see what their challenges are, get to really know them around what's actually happening, not only individually, but also between them in the relationship, and uncover, you know, if there are any sort of sticky points that are happening that perhaps need to be addressed. So that's a sort of, ends up with two 2-hour sessions. And as part of that as well, I'll do a health analysis. So I run a questionnaire which basically identifies where you are in your health today. So I'm looking at, the level of how each of the systems is working in your body. So we've got 9 systems, if you like. So then we've got a picture of exactly where you are from a health point of view. And from that, I then go on to really provide and create a bespoke plan for how we're actually going to improve all of those systems in the body. I do use organic natural supplements. We also look at, the state of your gut health. And there are a lot of indicators that will say, through this, we'll understand whether your gut is actually functioning in its optimal level. And I will take you through really a sort of 21-day, what I call a sort of rebalancing your gut microbiome program. And of course, diet, how you're eating, what you're eating is incredibly important, because you need to be eating a healthy, nutritious diet. And we talk about what your diet is currently. We look at what changes you need to make, because things like processed foods and stuff like that is not ideal at all. And yet I know that, people's lives are very busy, and, making meals are quick, and, can be sometimes a struggle when you come home from work and it's like, oh no, I need to make a meal. Oh, I don't really know what to do. And then it's really easy just to, either sort of pick up the phone and order something in, or, you just grab something out of the freezer or something that might not be the most healthy and nutritious thing that you could be eating. And because I know that this is a real issue for people, what I do is I actually provide you with 10 weeks of menus for your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner, and provide you with all the recipes as well, which are all healthy, nutritious, but also very tasty, simple, easy things to make that are pretty quick. And I'd say that, most things take less than 30 minutes to prepare. So that makes life simple and easy. There are other things that we have a coaching call, two 1-hour coaching calls once a month. And that's for us to really have with my clients, it's about really it's whatever is the issue that needs to be dealt with at that particular time. So, and I also work very intuitively and one of the things I was saying the other day is that my mantra, which will probably be on my gravestone when I go, is about getting to the root cause of the problem. and that's what I am really, really focused on, is let's get to the root cause of whatever the issue is. And, and through my coaching, I'm really guiding you to come up with the answer yourself. It's because a lot of the time it really is, we have the answers inside of us, but it requires somebody else to actually facilitate us to get to what's really going on deep down inside. So those, coaching calls can have some, incredibly powerful aha moments with clients many, many times. But it's also around, we talked about sort of childhood issues and behaviors and things that perhaps aren't serving you as well as they ought to be. And, we look at, whether it's a healing thing that needs to be done, or whether it's just an awareness situation that needs to come out of that, so that we actually look at, getting you into that place where, you're healing things that perhaps aren't serving you very well in your life currently. There's the other area as well is one of the things that perhaps a lot of people don't talk about is the environment, toxins, the things that you put on your body, the things that you put in your that you might be eating, that you shouldn't be eating. The whole issue of things like your chemicals, chemicals in cleaning products in the home that really are dangerous and are damaging to your fertility. There are lots of body products that people put on their body that have chemicals in there that are really not serving you. So as part of this, I actually provide, if you like, it's a sort of harmful products manual, I suppose, is what I call it, to help you actually identify, maybe some things that you're actually using that actually aren't going to help you in this situation that you're currently in. And I think, yes, so, and the key thing is that, throughout my program, we're focusing on the physical, we're focusing on the emotional stuff, we're focusing on your mindset. So working with you to turn any negativity, if you're in a negative place, I'm teaching you skills on how you can actually turn those negative thoughts round into positive ones. And that, to be honest, is a very powerful one that really sees your life, change, because when we're living in the positive, life is just so much more fun and enjoyable, and we're able to handle challenges that come along in life so much more effectively, and we take them in our stride rather than having us really derail us in our life. And of course, the other area which we focus on very much is relationship, not only with your partner, but your relationship with yourself. And this is around actually looking at self-love, self-value, self-worth, and encouraging you to really embrace your own self-love and self-worth. And the final element really is to encourage you and your partner to really start thinking about the sort of parents you want to be when this baby comes along. So that you're having a dialogue about what your common values are, what's important to you. Because so often people go into parenting and then actually are having arguments and discussions in front of the child about certain things that you think is okay to do or they think is okay to do. And obviously that's not good for the child to have those discussions whilst you're trying to parent at the same time. And, it's about, I provide coaching around your relationship, and that's with both of you, because, when we're going through a difficult time, it is stressful, and it has an impact on the relationship. So helping you to, really foster the right approach to dealing with each other in the relationship, so that you build a good, strong, supportive, loving, and caring relationship with each other, so that, when you do become parents, you actually go into this next stage of your life as this, all I would say is like, as the best version of yourselves, really, which is what I really like to see.
Oh, you guys, this has been an awesome interview with Sue Ritchie, the fertility coach. I am so excited and so grateful for having you on our show today. Sue, why don't you tell our listeners how they can contact you and how they can get in touch with you for your services?
Okay, so people can get in contact with me via my website, which is Sue-Ritchie, and that's Ritchie.com. And you can email me, sue@sue-ritchie.com. I've also just launched, actually, my private Facebook group, which is called The Alternative to IVF. And, this group is a safe space for any woman who is going, on this journey, who is struggling to conceive, or maybe is actually undergoing IVF currently, or, perhaps some, you've maybe just started on that whole journey thinking that you're ready to, you know, start having a family, having a baby. And, you know, the group there, my group really is about sharing with you, you know, lots of information, hints, tips about how you can actually boost your fertility and increase your potential for conception. And, you know, it's a safe space for you to share, because I think, you know, as women, we just so benefit from, you know, actually sharing and getting support and giving support to others. And obviously you'll get support from me in that group too. And I also will be, you know, interviewing other experts, not only in fertility, but other sort of surrounding areas, so that you'll get a huge amount of value from being in that group. And yeah, and I actually, it's also going to be a fun space as well, because I think, you know, too often we can be very, very serious all the time. But I believe that, you know, life should be fun and enjoyable. So, you know, I will be bringing some fun and enjoyment actually into that group as well. So yeah, so my Facebook group is called The Alternative to IVF.
Awesome. So what we'll do, you guys, as with all our guests, you can always find Sue's contact information on the articles that we write about her on our website, NRI Wellness, under the tab about our guest. Now, we'll give the information about the Facebook group, and we'll also post it in our Facebook group, the 10 Dimensions of Wellness, where we do a lot of after the podcast activities. So if you are not already a member, please join the 10 Dimensions of Wellness, where you can find all of that information. Now, so we're going to get started with this part of our segment. We just have a couple of questions that we want to ask you. The first one is, what's the biggest surprise that you've had in the last few months?
Well, do you know what? It's being that I love children, was the fact that my first granddaughter was actually born in January. And it's such an amazing and exciting thing to actually, you know, have. And well, it's just a dream come true to suddenly now have this little baby again in my life. And I love her to bits, and she's so adorable.
Oh, that's so awesome. So my next question to you is, what do you wish you had known 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, do you know what? I wish I'd known that all those negative thoughts that come into my head and tell me everything that I'm not, and, you know, and I'm not good enough, I can't communicate well, I don't speak properly, that all of the stuff that your negative voice tells you is all lies and rubbish. And you really must learn and become aware not to listen to it. And if you catch yourself saying negative things to yourself and talking negatively to yourself, you have to stop and turn it into the positive. Because the problem with a negative voice, it's there to keep us very safe and secure. But the biggest problem is it stops us from achieving our true potential. And that's very sad if we don't.
What makes you feel like your best self or inspires you?
That's an interesting question. I guess it is very much to do with, I love helping people, and I love working with my clients, and, you know, just being able to help them to really, you know, up level every area in their life, so that they're really living, you know, a really happy, joyful life, is, you know, something that just gives me such great fulfillment, really, and brings so much joy into my life, to see the transformation in others. Because, you know, I really believe life is life is too short, and we really should be living life, having fun, enjoying ourselves. And maybe, you know, we are all too serious a lot of the time, and we need to let go and have fun and play.
If you had a billboard that you could put anything on, what would it say and why?
It would say, put yourself first and love yourself. Because I truly believe that self-love, if we have self-love and we actually take care of ourselves, look after ourselves, then we're able to show up as the best version of ourselves. And when we do that, amazing magic happens in our lives, because it just spreads everywhere all around us, and life can become so much easier as a result.
Awesome. You guys, this has been another dynamic episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness. Sue, we are so grateful for having you on our show today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. Again, you guys, Sue is all the way in the UK, so you know I am truly, truly grateful for you being here with us. Thank you for blessing us with insight and information on fertility, telling us about your services, and just about who you are, sharing your wellness journey with us as well.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it.
Well, you guys, you can hear this episode of the 10 Dimensions of Wellness, as well as any of our other episodes, on Spotify, Anchor FM, Pandora, the iHeartRadio, Apple Music, Google, and now we are officially on Amazon Music and a plethora of other audio platforms. Now, don't forget, you can hear the audio version of this as well on our YouTube channel at NRI Wellness. Don't forget to join our group on Facebook, the 10 Dimensions of Wellness, for after the podcast. You can meet a lot of our show guests in that group, find a mentor, also connect with them on some of the things that they do. A lot of our show guests post in that group, and we also set up classes and content in that group as well. So thank you again for listening to the 10 Dimensions of Wellness. Enjoy your evening and good night.
NRI Wellness brings you the latest health and nutrition information, creates customized nutrition programs, and walks you through the process to ensure your success.